Welcome everybody to my video slide presentation on where is the rapture in the book of Revelation. I was reading an article by Keith Essex on the rapture and the book of Revelation. He's got some really good ideas. He goes through all the possible rapture scenarios in the book of Revelation, a few of them anyway, and then he evaluates them. So I'm going to use a bit of his stuff and put in some of mine as well. First mention is Revelation 3:10. People think this could be the rapture. It says there, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which will come upon the whole world to try them that dwell upon the earth. So the idea is he's not going to lead us into temptation. He's going to take us out before that testing. And that's the rapture. Some of the problems with this idea is that the whole rapture would be based on one preposition, ek, which can mean out of or from. Another problem is just directed to the Church of Philadelphia. What about the other 6 churches? The other idea is, well, you have to buy into the idea that these 7 churches represent 7 eras of church history. And that's another dubious point. And finally, the woman in Revelation 12 is kept, from the testing or the trial, persecution of the serpent. So why can't we be? And one other thing is that Jesus says, I don't ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. So let's look at that. If we compare the Greek on that passage in John, we see something pretty interesting. They both use this word ek. And let's look at Revelation 3:10. It says, and I will keep out of, ek, or from, the hour of testing, pyrasmu. Now in John 17:15 it says, not I ask that you should them take out of the world, the cosmos, but that you should them out of the evil one keep. You should keep them from the evil one, you see. Jesus doesn't say he's going to take us out of the world, but just keep us from the evil one. So when he says in Revelation 3:10, I'll keep you out of the hour of testing, he's not talking about coming out of the world. He's talking about keeping us from the serpent, just like he did the woman. Another example is a second example of a rapture possibility in Revelation is Revelation 4:1, where here the elders, the 24 elders, are like the church. And here we read, after this I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven, and a voice I had first heard speaking to me like a trumpet said, come up here, and I will show you what is to take place after this. And we know, that so what they're saying is this come up here is the church being raptured before, all the tribulation that's coming. However, on evaluating this, even Keith makes the point, these 24 elders have a problem because, we're not sure that they're the church, because in 7:14, one of them shows up concerning the multitude. So, what about, and he answers John. Also, the 24 elders are associated with angels, and that's how they appear, this one in 7:14. Also, the word, the idea of come up here is spoken to John. He's talking about come up and see this vision, but it's not the rapture. And Paul did the same thing in 2 Corinthians 11:2, where he was taken up into the third heaven and he heard things that he wasn't allowed to talk about. nor was this a rapture. Third proposal of the church is in Revelation 6:2. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. So since Christ comes in Revelation 19:11 on a white horse, and this is his second coming, then coming on a white horse in 6:2 at the beginning of the week could be the rapture. And the problem, though, and Keith mentions this, that we don't really know who this guy is. Whereas the one in Revelation 19, he's called faithful and true. So we know this one's Christ. Also, the white horse in 6:2 fits with the first sign in Matthew 24:5 of somebody saying, I am Christ. So rather than being Christ, it could be the Antichrist. So that can't be the rapture then. And also the white horse, follows other plagues, nothing good. So why would it be the rapture? Now, a fourth rapture idea is Revelation 7:9 following. This is concerning the great multitude who are clothed, standing before the throne. So some think this is the raptured church. Why? Because, well, it follows the heavenly signs in Revelation 6:12, the sixth seal, and at the end of chapter 6, talking about the wrath of God has come. So a lot of people think this is the rapture of the church. Keith says no, because he says these are called the ones who have come out of the great tribulation. Now, he says the church includes saints throughout all the ages, church age, not just the great tribulation. So this can't be, because it's only an exclusive number. And the fifth proposal is Revelation 11:3, talking about the two witnesses. And we see that these two witnesses, they prophesy for 42 months, 3.5 years, and then they're killed. And so some think that and then they're raptured up or caught up. And a loud voice says, come up here. And so they think that this is the rapture of the church, that these two witnesses represent the church. Problem here is that, they're both dead. Where's the living in this group? So the rapture includes those who are raised up and also those who are alive and changed. The other problem is, in Malachi, Elijah is promised before the great terrible day of the Lord. And so he's obviously one of the two witnesses. And Moses, who turns the water to blood. So these are individuals, so how can they be the church? And finally, just because they say come up here, they said that to John as well. So, and it wasn't the rapture then. Sixth idea is that is a woman who has a man-child, and that this being caught up, this man-child, really represents Christ, who is us as the church. And it says, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. So let's look at that one. Here, this idea has an advantage of the Greek word for caught up. It's like used in the rapture in 1 Thessalonians 4:17. Same Greek word. And arpaxo or something. So, sounds good. Problem is, and Keith brings this up, is that this man-child is to rule the nations with a rod of iron, and is in fact reigning, right now in the church age. So not the church, can't be the church then, but Christ at the Father's right hand. The seventh idea is Revelation 14:14. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. and another angel came out of the temple, and on and on. So let's evaluate that. First, yes, it appears to be Christ coming in the clouds, the Son of Man, but no mention of the rapture. Only a sharp sickle, only judgment. The harvest here is not the harvest of the church, but it more fits with the tares. And those are going to be judged in the great winepress of God's wrath, the nations. Angels do not rapture here, but rather they put in a sickle and cast these nations into a winepress outside the city, Jerusalem. So this is not the rapture of the church, and this is more the judgment of these nations. The eighth proposal is Revelation 20, verse 4. And I saw the souls of them who were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hand. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. And they came to life. So this is the first resurrection. So people think, some post-trib people think that this is the rapture, because whenever people come to life, the resurrection, it must include the rapture, because that's what Paul says. So what about that one? Well, Keith says one of the things here, the problem with this proposal is that there is only a resurrection here, and doesn't say anything about being caught up. Plus, he says we should expect the rapture to be associated or at the same time as the coming of Christ. But this is after Revelation 19. We know that's Revelation 19:11 is the second coming. It says it, but here we have this resurrection afterwards. So it does not fit. So does that mean that there's really no mention of the rapture in the book of Revelation? Now, Keith, the writer of this article that I was reading and using, goes back to mentioning Revelation 3:10 as where God promises to keep the church of Philadelphia out of the hour of testing as the rapture. While his argument is very good in all the proposals and even their evaluations, there's still one other possibility, one other example that I noticed he didn't mention. This is then the ninth proposal I'm going to make, Revelation 19:7-10. It says, "And let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready. And to her it was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints." So here we have this just before let's look at the valuation. Now we know in Matthew 24:25 and following that there's a marriage set up there. We have the 10 virgins and we have the bridegroom who's coming. And we know the scenario of the marriage, the Jewish marriage, where Christ has been in his Father's house. That's where he's been. And then so when the time comes for the marriage, then he has to leave the Father's house and he comes to pick up his bride. And his bride is in a different house. She's in her home. And this is kind of significant because we are still in this fleshly body. And so we're waiting for the time when the two shall become one. Paul calls this the marriage. And when two will become one flesh. And he calls this a great mystery of Christ in the church. So I think this is really what the rapture is all about, is when this marriage takes place, when we're changed, and when Christ returns and comes and takes his bride. And so that's one point. And the other is here we have Christ coming. It's pictured right after Revelation 19. So the coming of Christ, so the marriage is before, and then comes the coming of Christ. Another point is this marriage is after the judgment of Babylon in Revelation 18 and following. And you know, this makes sense because remember Revelation 18, God says, he says, come out of Babylon, my people. Well, if they're going to be raptured, or if they're already raptured, why would he be saying that? But if you juxtaposition the marriage between the coming of Christ and the judgment of Babylon, it makes sense. And here's the final one. When we come with Christ, where's my cursor here? When we come with Christ, they're called the armies, clothed in fine linen and bright and clean. And the bride, we see in the marriage, it was given to her to be clothed in fine linen, bright and clean. Let's look at that. So let's compare the Greek here. So we look at the marriage, and it says, and it was given to her that she should clothe herself with fine linen, bright and clean. And this is an aorist, means kind of like a one act, aorist, subjunctive, middle. And then here in Revelation 19:15, of the ones coming, us now coming with Christ, with the Word of God. And there Robertson says, see 19:14, for the same raiment on those accompanying the Word of God. And here we see, having been clothed with fine linen, white and clean. So here's the key here, though, is this Greek word here. It's in a perfect tense. Now, perfect means something that's already happened. It's a past event with abiding results. So when did they get clothed? Well, it has to be here in the marriage, at the rapture. So they're already having been clothed, and that's when we come with Christ. So in conclusion, then, the rapture seems to be mentioned in Revelation 19:7-10, and it's just the marriage of the Lamb. The rapture is when, before we're caught up even, the two become one flesh. We're changed, and like a change of garment. And we take the one flesh of Christ. Right now, we're still two flesh. And we get our new bodies the same as Jesus' resurrection body. This marriage is spoken of. We can see it when Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 4:17, then we were alive and remain, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air, and thus shall we always be with the Lord. See, therefore comfort one another with these words. We shall always be with the Lord, because we've been married. The two have become one. That's why we'll always be with the Lord. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and keep watching some other videos and subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and God bless.